Well, House of the Dragon Season 3 is right around the corner, and I know we're all excited, myself included, but in all honesty, I've got some concerns. And depending on what direction the writers and directors go, some of the flaws we saw in Season 2 could come up again in Season 3 and cause even more problems. You know, House of the Dragon Season 3 will only go over well with fans and critics if they actually deliver on this widespread conflict. You know, at the end of Season 1, it was built up to be this major conflict we're about to get, and besides the one battle in Episode 4 of Season 2, the rest of the season doesn't really have any major conflicts, at least not ones they show. And so, yeah, Season 2 is just much slower and didn't deliver on the promises that Season 1 made of a high-stakes, high-action war. But it seems that Season 3 is making that promise. When you look at the trailers, you just see conflict after conflict across Westeros, and Daemon even says the line, "In a war, all suffer." And so it seems, though, from the trailers that Season 3 will deliver to some degree, but at the same time, there's other things in the trailers that make me very concerned. If the writers filmed Season 3 with a slow pace, with forced drama, and they just keep kicking the can of the actual conflict and the actual stakes of people dying, if they keep kicking this can down the road more and more, it might just turn many fans off completely. A big thing that Season 1 does well, that Season 2 struggles with at times, is that characters drove the plot. I mean, character decisions drive everything. What's the very first big thing we see in Season 1? It's when Viserys decides to retrieve the baby against his wife's choosing, and ultimately her and the child both die from that. And you see Viserys make that choice because he wants a male heir so bad. But the choice itself, Viserys having to make that choice, is what makes that scene so interesting. And it's also just very intense. And the moral complexity, the gray areas, those hard decisions characters have to make is what has always made Game of Thrones interesting and that world interesting. And that was carried over to House of the Dragon in Season 1 so well. Constantly, characters make you feel conflicted on what they're doing. I mean, think of characters like Tyrion or Theon or Robb. In Season 3, characters need to drive the plot. That's what's always made Game of Thrones great, and that's why Season 1 of House of the Dragon is so well done. It's characters having to make decisions. Characters that aren't purely good or purely evil. There's this moral grayness to them, and you really don't know what they're going to do. You really don't know what Viserys is going to decide. You don't know what Daemon's going to do. You think you have a good idea of what Otto's going to do, but sometimes he surprises you. I think that's the strongest point of the whole show, is wondering what these characters will do, because they're not just good or just evil characters. They're very complicated, complex people in a high-stakes political environment, and they're all clawing for power for one reason or the other. I mean, look at Otto for an example. On one hand, he is a snake, like Daemon calls him, and he sends his daughter to the king so that he'll end up marrying her, and now his bloodline will be sitting on the throne one day. And on one hand, it's like, Otto's such a snake in the grass. He's done all this evil stuff. But on another hand, Otto has set up his family to have great power and rule for many, many years, and has now placed them on the Iron Throne. And then Otto even warns Alicent in Season 1 when he says, "You're going to have to fight Rhaenyra one day because your sons have a claim to the throne, and it's going to hurt her claim. And so there's going to be a war one day." And times like that, it's like, yeah, Otto's a bad guy and I don't like him, but he's making a lot of sense. Same thing with Daemon. Daemon's super difficult, he's arrogant, he's rebellious, he's selfish. It seems like he's always doing things for himself and never the betterment of the realm. But then at the same time, he gets stuff done. He gets the Stepstone problem done. He tells Viserys to his face that he's weak and that his biggest enemy is himself, and people like Otto that are snakes and they're just sticking their claws in him. And Daemon's right about most of that. But at the same time, Daemon's not necessarily a good guy. And that's what makes House of the Dragon so interesting. I mean, Rhaenyra does some pretty questionable stuff in Season 1, and even in Season 2 at times, not as often. And I think that's one of the strongest aspects of the show. But if they make Rhaenyra out in Season 3, if they really solidify her as a good moral character that just doesn't rule the best, maybe she's not that great at being an actual queen, but she's still a good person, and they make just Aemon out to be like an actual psychopath and he's super evil, then that's going to be a big problem. That's going to be a big problem. It's going to hurt the story. It's going to turn the story into a cliche fantasy story, whereas season 1 set it up to be this very raw, emotional, political conflict between family, between cousins, right? Between two girls that were basically sisters. And now they're going to war, and they're taking thousands of people to their grave with them, all to sit on this throne. And who really is good and who really is evil? Who really has the claim to the throne, right? That makes it so much more complicated and interesting. And again, it's just fun to watch the characters and wonder, what's Daemon going to do? What's Otto going to do? What's Aemon going to do? What's Rhaenyra going to do? How far will he go for the Iron Throne? How far will she go for the Iron Throne? If the writers hold on to that, this season could be phenomenal. But if they start to make some people just evil and some people good, then it's just not going to be nearly as interesting. You know, Rhaenyra works way better when she takes action. In season 1, Rhaenyra gets stuff done. She's rebellious at times, she's also adventurous, she's direct, but she's also just proactive. She gets stuff done. Remember in season 1 when Daemon's making this claim that his wife is pregnant and that he needs a dragon egg for his future child, and Viserys is obviously mad about it, and he's going to go confront him, but Otto's like, you can't, you're the king, that's just way too risky, I'll go confront him. Otto goes and confronts him, but Otto doesn't have a dragon, and Daemon does, and then who shows up? Rhaenyra. She shows up and she deals with the problem. I mean, she literally says, okay, uncle, kill me right now and just start this war with your brother, or give me the egg, let this be done with. This is just a big joke, it is. And sure enough, Rhaenyra solves that problem in like 5 minutes. And so if Rhaenyra is proactive in this season, in season 3, it can be a very interesting and gripping season. But if she's sitting at Dragonstone or King's Landing or wherever she ends up at, if she's sitting in some castle, pacing back and forth about, I don't know if we need to fight these people, I don't know if we need to send these people, I mean, we need to see what kind of army we can raise here, I don't know if we can send these reinforcements, and she does that for episodes upon episodes, and then just talks and talks and talks to other side characters, that's going to be a problem. Rhaenyra was at her best. This isn't just me making a critique of the character. This is a critique of season 2 Rhaenyra, not season 1 Rhaenyra. Season 1 Rhaenyra got stuff done continually, but season 2 Rhaenyra will paced around and just talked and talked and talked all season until she finally took the gamble and got the commoner dragon riders, which was one of the best episodes of the season. It worked out well. Rhaenyra finally stepped out and did something. But if she just walks around and talks for multiple episodes, that's going to be a problem. She needs to go back to being a proactive character that makes decisions and gets stuff done. That doesn't mean every decision is going to be a good decision. That doesn't mean it's going to always benefit her cause. She's going to make mistakes. She needs to make mistakes. That's just natural in a story. But she needs to be making decisions and not pacing back and forth, waiting on Daemon or waiting on Alicent or whatever she was doing in season 2. The drama and the war need to be balanced. Season 1 did this very well. The Stepstones War only spans a few episodes, but it's very impactful and it is very relevant to the overall plot, and it's just very interesting to see. It's also nice to see dragons in full-scale conflict, so having that balance of political intrigue and actual large-scale battles is very, very important. I would argue that season 3, where they're at in the story and how it's been marketed, that there needs to be a bit more action in this season than any of the previous seasons and even most seasons of Game of Thrones. I mean, this is such a large-scale conflict that it has gotten way out of hand that they should be delivering on a ton of action. But still with good pacing and good balancing of character drama, following through with character arcs, following interesting characters, not boring characters. That's all very, very important. It just needs to be balanced and tied in well. Not all political drama like season 2 was, and not all conflict like a lot of big budget blockbuster movies are. And there needs to be that healthy balance. Season 2 got some things right. I know a lot of fans weren't happy with it. I mean, there was many episodes when they ended, I was not happy with them either. But there are some things that season 2 did very well. One thing that season 2 did just exceptionally well is the infighting within both sides, both within Rhaenyra's team and even on Alicent's side of it. There's infighting amongst the family on both sides. I mean, from the beginning of season 2, Rhaenyra and Daemon are not agreeing, and Daemon going as far to potentially trying to make a claim as king and usurping Rhaenyra. And then Aemon just straight up betrays Aegon mid-battle, which, again, great scene because you're like, Aemon's willing to go this far. But the infighting in season 2 is just exceptional because it gives you more drama. It gives you more questions. It establishes characters uniquely about what they're really concerned about. And war naturally creates drama. I mean, outer conflict is going to create conflict in a home, in a family, in a group of people. That's going to seep in. And so that needs to continually happen in season 3. They need to keep having infighting. There needs to keep being characters disagreeing over war plans, disagreeing over who they sin, disagreeing when mistakes happen, blaming this is your fault. That will naturally come up and naturally happen. And remember how those characters think and their beliefs, and follow through with all that. And the tension feels real within these separate factions because people just want different things. Some people want more money. Some people want another castle in Westeros. Some people want their bloodline sitting on the throne. And so naturally, characters are going to disagree, and they've got to work together and figure out how they're going to agree and beat the other side, or they're going to destroy themselves from the inside out. And the human side matters the most. At the core of the story, it's about people. From Viserys' opening decision to perform that operation on his wife, to Rhaenyra and Daemon marrying each other, to when Jace gets back in season 2 and he's trying to tell Rhaenyra the report of what this other family said and how they swore allegiance to her, but he's breaking down crying because his brother just died. That's the kind of stuff people really remember and makes an impact on an audience. So the writers need to remember that. I remember watching Jace break down like that. It's just so gut-wrenching and relatable. I mean, you just feel bad for him. Here he is. He has a claim to the throne, but so do his cousins in a way. And now there's this large-scale conflict that he's trying to help. He's trying to get stuff done. He's trying to be proactive, but his mom doesn't want him to go anywhere. And they finally do, and then his brother gets killed. At the core of the story is about people. And the best stories, I would argue, are centered around characters, their decisions, and the arc they go on, the development they go on. And so we should see characters developing this season and see these raw moments where behind all the dragons and the big explosions and the big fancy house names and all this death and gore, behind all that are people. Those characters that, while they're fictional, we watch them and we feel like they're real, right? And we connect to them. And so the writers need to be very focused on that and focus on that rawness and genuineness of those characters and what they're really thinking and feeling and what they're going through and how this would affect a person. That will create some amazing moments. Like I mentioned, season 3 must avoid forcing characters into nonsensical situations. I cannot express how appalled I was when Rhaenyra starts to talk about, I'm going to go see Alicent in King's Landing. And you're sitting there as the viewer thinking, what is she talking about? What does she think? She's just going to walk into King's Landing like there's no big deal? And then she just teleports. Like 5 minutes later, she's in King's Landing talking to Alicent. And of course, nothing comes from this. I mean, nothing gets done from this. Nothing productive for either side. And no consequences come from this either. It's not like she gets captured. She just leaves. And then it happens again at the end of the season. I think me and my buddy looked up the distance the other day from Dragonstone to King's Landing, and it's like hundreds of miles. It would have taken days for Alicent to get there. And one scene, Alicent's yelling with Aemond and her daughter, and then a couple minutes later, she's at Dragonstone talking to Rhaenyra. Not only is it just not consistent with time and travel in the world, which is a problem season 8 of Game of Thrones got into, but they're also just forcing situations. I'm just not sold that Rhaenyra or Alicent at this point would go to that length to meet up with each other. There'd been so much conflict and fighting all the way back to season 1 between these families, and then Rhaenyra's son gets killed at the end of season 1, and then Alicent thinks Rhaenyra sent in assassins to kill her grandchildren, and they end up doing that. They kill one of them. And I'm supposed to believe that they're going to get together and they're going to stop the war. Hey, we're good friends. Let's just stop all this nonsense. I just think those scenes are ridiculous. And while season 3 might not contain these absurd peace talks, the writers could definitely force situations of Daemon and Aemond having some weird long dialogue, or Alicent and Rhaenyra have some crazy conversation in a battlefield. Like something crazy could happen and they could force a conversation because they've got great actors and the actors would make the scene great, but if the writing behind it is just nonsense, it's going to be laughable. And I just really hope they don't do that again. And like I said earlier, Rhaenyra needs to be proactive. She doesn't need to be passive. They don't need to make her passive again. You know, she's challenging centuries of tradition by being a woman trying to ascend the Iron Throne. She's claiming the Iron Throne and following through with what her father left behind, those claims that he left behind. I mean, she is leading a war against Viserys' true firstborn son. I mean, that's just how it is. And so she can't be sitting back being all passive and just one minute she's saying, I am the rightful queen, but the next minute she's saying, I don't really know if we want to fight for this though. Like maybe we can chat about it and figure this out. She doesn't need to be doing that in season 3. The story is so far past that, it's ridiculous, and it was crazy in season 2. So they need to get on from that. The story needs to be unpredictable. One thing the writers need to replicate in season 3 is how unpredictable things were in seasons 1 and 2. Both seasons had very unpredictable things at times. That doesn't mean subverting expectations horrifically like David and Dan did in season 8. Don't even get me started on that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about believable things that the audience wouldn't have really guessed. A good example of this is when Rhaenyra recruits the common-born dragon riders, and it creates a great scene where she just throws them in there and decides to let them all die and hope that a couple come out dragon riders, which is very morally questionable and a fascinating character study of how she got that power hungry that she would throw those people in there. But not only is it a great moral question and just fascinating, and exciting at times, but it also is unpredictable. I didn't think for 1 minute going into season 2 that they were going to find a bunch of lowborn people and throw them on these other dragons and then recruit them to their side. I never thought about that, but as soon as they introduced it, it made sense. I mean, they're desperate. Rhaenyra's desperate to get the advantage, to get the edge, and it's a great way to get ahead of the Greens. And it's very believable because, again, the royals constantly went down to the brothels and those places and had other half-blood children. And so it's very believable, and it really swayed the power dynamic very quickly in the story. And I think they can replicate this in season 3 in other ways. Not shock value, not forcing characters to meet up and make crazy decisions, but genuinely surprising the audience. So in conclusion, season 3 doesn't need more dragons. It doesn't need bigger battles. They need to deliver on the promises they've made on former seasons, which include big battles. But at the heart of all this, they need to focus on characters, character decisions. And by the way, the character decisions are going to lead to the battles and the conflict. All these people want to win. They want the Iron Throne. And so if they focus on the characters, focus on their decisions, we could get some great character moments, some great character growth, some interesting character studies, some massive worldwide conflict. I'm excited for season 3. I'll be making videos in the future about how season 3 went. So if you enjoyed this video, come back to my channel. I'm going to make more content about House of the Dragon, and hopefully it will be positive content, but there might be a chance it doesn't go that well. So I'll see you in the next one.